If it turns out that, yes, you do indeed, how would you deal with that in your household?
I think they just put Mike down.
I mean, I've been telling people to do that for years, and they still haven't. So I don't know. I don't know where we go with that from now. It's not good enough reason now.
Your dad comes over with a shovel. Sorry, son.
He doesn't need it. They just need to give my kids scissors. They'll end up in my head. My dad couldn't put me down, but my kid will.
It's because it's like with your dad, you'd fight back, but your kid, you're just like, oh, that's so cute.
Give my kid golf cleats. I'll be dead within minutes.
You'd bleed out just immediately.
Yeah. How fucking funny.
Interesting.
Was that stupid picture I posted? Did you see that, Patrick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just because of how fucking shit this whole year has been. That picture was hysterical.
Mm-hmm.
To describe, I found it on Reddit, and it's this picture of what looks like an old lady in a pink suit hanging from a fence or something, and it says September hits in 2020. The Queen has broke containment, is what it said. The Queen has broke containment.
Queen has broken containment.
Yeah. And there's something about that just fucking flattened me for like 5 minutes.
It was funnier than it really should have been. And yeah, given the context, that's what it was. It's any other year it'd have been like, oh yeah, look at that. That's cute.
Because there's never been a good containment.
Good times.
All right, we're doing this shit.
Let's do this shit. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of Level 1 GM. This is the show where you get to see me as the not smart GM learn from smart GM Mike right up there. And also today we are being joined by Patrick, our smart player, who someday will also be a not smart GM someday.
We're gonna make him.
Absolutely right. So, this is system agnostic, people. This isn't just for Dungeons and Dragons. This isn't just for Savage Worlds. This is for all of them. Your cyberpunks. This is for your Shadow Worlds. This is for everything. This is how to run a game better than me. Okay? Do as Mike says, not as I do. That is the rule here.
You did a great job last Thursday.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. I feel like last week went pretty well. I made some mistakes. I did make some story mistakes inside of that, and that is something that we can't really talk about without spoiling things. But
let's talk about it.
No,
that's the beauty of a homebrew campaign, Chad.
Exactly.
You didn't make any narrative mistakes. You just gave yourself future editorial decisions.
It does indeed. And that kind of leads us to today's topic, which is GM expectations. Because I think as players, and Patrick, you can talk to this as a smart player, when you walk into a campaign as a player brand new and you have expectations as a player, correct?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sort of based on what you've been told, your character creation, things you've shared, the backstories you've shared with the GM, the things that the GM has told you about. You have expectations as a player, like what this campaign is going to be about. But I think as GMs, we also have expectations. Mike, talk a little bit about GM expectations, especially from your experience as a GM. When you go into a new campaign, how do you wrap your head around those expectations you have?
Okay. I'm going to start with the definition of the player's expectation in the group, because that's a widely talked about thing, and we are not talking about anywhere near that same thing. So player's expectation when it comes to role-playing, and it's something that's talked about a lot, especially in online, sort of D&D or tabletop forums, is the concept. It's also referred to these days as the Matthew Mercer effect, where the concept of the really good GMs that you're seeing on publications, Matthew Mercer, for instance, have set this expectation that GMs can be excellent and their stories are always good and they never make any mistakes and blah, 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 blah. we're not talking about that. We're talking about expectations as a GM for yourself, not for your party or anyone else. So, and the best, if I could TLDR this before we even start, the best way to encompass is what I'm about to say for the next half an hour is a quote from the Mad TV. Lowered expectations. If you're making a homebrew campaign or a module or something like that, you homebrew, you're going to come up with all this backstory and all these NPCs and all these lands and the incredible stories of the people that they'll never meet or they could meet. Oh, maybe. Stop. They're most likely not going to run into half that shit. And if they do, you're going to forget in the moment what the fuck that was about and fuck it up for yourself. So just bring it down. Just breathe and bring it down. Because you're not going to nail it. Same goes with the module. You could have read that thing front to back, forwards and backwards, know the whole thing memorized. In the moment, you will fuck it up. And it's so much worse if you go, wait, I need to go back and I've had to do that a couple times. It looks bad. It sounds bad. It feels bad. Don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're talking about. You're going to do a ton of work, and you should, but don't get hard on yourself if you fuck it up.
Right. Especially, I think, as a new GM. I think as you become more experienced and you learn all of these things, and you become more comfortable with sort of storytelling, that collaborative storytelling process, storytelling on the fly, I think your expectations of yourself can grow a little bit. But walking in, man, it is not going to be a perfect experience. You're not good at it yet, guys. And ladies, you're just not good at it yet. You gotta start somewhere, right? Everybody starts at level 1. Fuck. Just, temper your expectations.
You gotta kill goblins before you can slay dragons. That's all I'm saying.
There it is. We're such fucking nerds. Okay. But that leads us to, I think, the first part of this, which is preparation. Something we've talked about preparation a lot. In our, encounters episode, in our combat episode, it all sorts of sense to come back to preparation. But can you over prepare?
Absolutely. You won't realize you're doing it, but yes. And this isn't a thing that some people ever grow out of as GMs. It has a lot more to do with the personality archetype than I think a lot of other things in GMing do. But the amount of preparation people coming in, those who it really does show what type of person you are as to the preparedness level you have felt you needed before entering a session or a full campaign. Some people write novels that they then present to a party, hoping they'll travel from page 1 to page 2 to page 3 to page 4 and go in that manner. And some people show up with like a sentence written down on a page, but there's a big question mark written at the end of it. and then they're like, "That's winging from here." It very much like fuck the Myers-Briggs test. It makes somebody GM for a while and you find out exactly what personality.
What kind of person are they?
Yeah,
Patrick. We're talking about a lot of GM stuff, and what I think about how we keep trying to pressure you into the GM role at some point. What is it about being a GM that you don't particularly look forward to? What is it that stops you from just jumping in and going, fine, fuck, I'll do it. Quit, pushing me so hard. Is it preparation?
It's not preparation. I've got no problem with preparation at all. In fact, as I get older, preparation age is like a staple in Anyway,
That's a hemorrhoids joke.
yeah.
It's old people joke. I get it.
For me, it's being able to turn on a dime when the group does.
Well, don't do that. You'll blow your hip out.
But yeah, being able to switch gears as quickly as I feel that I would need to.
I really told myself I wouldn't do this today. Okay, I'm sorry.
But mainly, that's the main thing is maybe not having enough there ready to go should the group decide to take it in a different direction.
I feel like you're an excellent
or
improv
having the
person.
know-how to steer you back in the direction I would prefer you to go.
I feel like you're an excellent improv person, though, so I don't think you should worry too much.
But that's part of the preparation process.
But the question is, what's keeping me from doing it? And it's
Right.
my belief in myself to be able to do that.
So it's a confidence thing more than
Yeah.
a procedural thing, right?
Probably, I would say, yeah.
Preparation was something that when I came in. Okay, so first of all, I mean, I guess there's a question. My personal GM expectations, right? I came into this going, you know what? Fuck, I've written screenplays. God damn it. I played this a long time. I'm gonna do great at this. I can
Same
improv.
thing,
It's fucking great, man. I will be a badass. And session one, I was over my head like immediately.
Drowning! Help! Drowning!
Not going as planned. Fuck! I mean, the first decision that was to be made derailed fucking it. And we were on a train. So yes, derailed fucking everything. So I think that's part of that GM expectation that especially I think new players have is that, you know, is this is how it's gonna go. The expectation is, as you were saying, page 1, page 2, page 3. And I think really what it is page 1, okay, we're off the fucking script. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, that's really, I think that if we start talking about real expectations of a GM, I think that's the first thing you have to expect from your party, right? Is that they are going to go off script immediately because there's not supposed to be a script, right?
Right.
It's,
Yeah. I giggled when you said I've written screenplays. Because yeah, I bet you have, and they all did exactly what you told them to do.
Exactly, because I'm controlling the characters. Right?
Yes, you're controlling the narrative entirely, and it's coming from your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You're controlling you can control the weather, you know, and you can control time when you get to write everything. But as it stands for GMing, scripting or writing generally in a more useful sense is knowing where the next set piece is and how to get there. It's not exactly what's happening. It's keeping an idea of the characters in mind that you can control. You know, you can't control your players, but you can control the NPCs. And thinking about on the fly, how would they respond? What are they trying to do? Where is this all trying to go? And in that you can push and craft and go in the direction. And that's where I think you, personal opinion, need to find your preparation wheelhouse and have your beginning and end and your things you want to do along the way, but don't get too attached to any of it. That's where the lower your expectations, you know, from earlier comes from. If you decide the entire campaign has to end in one specific way, you need to be a master manipulator to get them to do exactly what you're trying to aim for. Because most likely it's not going to happen. And if you get too attached to that thing, you're either going to force it and it's going to feel forced, which could provide other issues. Or 2, you're just going to frustrate yourself when it doesn't happen. And again, this is a game. We talked about that last week. We talked about that basically every week. This is a game. If you're not having fun, if you're finding yourself frustrated and beaten down by your players or your narrative not being found, then you're not playing a game anymore.
Right.
So not being so hard on yourself about where you're going and where you need to go, because that's going to change, and that's okay.
Right. It's over preparation would be the script. Like Patrick, I mean, okay, we all have our experiences with scripts. There's something comforting about a script, correct? I mean, you know where things are going. You can memorize stuff. One of my things, I know what the other actor is going to do and supposed to do. So if things do go awry, I can, help swing things back to where it's supposed to go, especially in live performance. But improv, we've all done our share of improv, correct? I mean, on stage, right?
Yes, and
right? Nice. There is no script. All you have is, a set of details, essentially. That's kind of what GMing really is, right?
It's a long list of details generally, but yes.
So it's less of a page 1, page 2, page 3, and it's more of a murder board with tacks in it, and we're stringing red yarn from tack to tack, going, that's how these things are related.
We're looking for Pepe Sylvia. You're correct. And the other advantage is, it's not drunk Karen screaming your mom's house when you ask for a location. It's you picking location, you picking the characters that you're in, you're picking the setting, you're picking the circumstance. And
I think too, one of the things I think that you can control, and I'm starting to figure this out, is the flow of information. Right? You're not giving all of your players all of the information all at once, right?
Right.
It's all about flow of information, and I think that's where you can I think you can steer people. And I think what we're all kind of worried about, at least what I worry about, and Patrick, maybe this has something to do with that confidence that you talk about, is what the fuck do you do when the characters, when your players aren't doing what you thought they were going to do?
Or and here's the fun bit that happens occasionally, outright destroys any possibility of it happening in the future. Right. That's a good one.
And we'll call that party progress, right? Getting your party to move through the story in some way that kind of makes sense and feels kind of cool, right? Mm-hmm. So, how does the preparation, our expectations as GMs, how do we reconcile all of that shit and, to be confident enough to go, fuck it, yes, let's move through this, let's point our party in a new direction. Fuck it, we're rolling the dice and we'll see what happens.
Well, I think we find because we stream it and record it and throw it up for other people to look at, it's a unique scenario. But if you're talking that adds an extra layer of, wanting it to be a coherent story and whatnot. But for private gameplay and GMing, I think something a lot of new GMs don't think about is that it's irrelevant. If the progress stops, or you have to take a break to figure out something else, or if they're going too fast or too slow, it's irrelevant. I mean, we're trying to, for our streaming purposes, we've decided to, we're not just pole vaulting, we're pole vaulting and there's chainsaws. But for just having a good time playing the game, I think the concept of the player expectation, and that's what you're fundamentally worrying about here, right? Is like, how will your players feel about you going through it?
Yeah.
You know, what speed, what pace, are they having a good time?
Mm-hmm.
I think fundamentally it's generally they don't care, because you've still done the lion's share of the work and you're still providing an experience. And even though we're streaming stuff like that, that's something I try to hang on to as well. You guys always tell me and tell each other that you're just happy to be doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's just something you need to hang on to as a GM. Again, it's a game.
But is that because we're truly having fun, or we just have miserable lives?
Well, there's another secret. In America, everyone's having miserable lives right now. I'm not a billionaire. You're not a billionaire. And they're the only ones having fun. So I think we're okay there.
This is all we have, Patrick. This is all we have. So, I as a GM, new GM, I think my expectations have changed since I began, and I think that's really what we're kind of talking about here is the being able to step into a set of expectations that you may have had at the beginning, but being able to roll with those expectations. As I'm learning more, as I'm getting more experience, my expectations as a GM have changed. With all the experience that you've had, Mike, do you feel like that still happens for you when you start a game versus, say, in my case, 6 sessions in?
Yes. I mean, I exclusively run homebrew, so I can't speak for like starting a module and stuff like that. But for the stuff I've done, I always have this. I make the mistake of over preparing generally before a campaign. I mean, I have towns and regions and places that in Crosden that you haven't been to, and I now know you never will. But the
right.
And I craft this world because I get lost in the fun, sort of the fun on my end of just playing and creating, and it's like it's playing God in the early planning of a campaign or a narrative or something like that. You're building something out of nothing, and I don't mean nothing. I mean blatantly ripping off all the things you've been watching, but you craft this whole idea of what could be. And then for me, it generally breaks down when I hear about my character naming himself Guy Fisty. Luke, you jerk, you fucking jackass. And I realize, it's going to be one of those.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Mm-hmm.
No, but then you don't have to, I'm joking. There's no problem. It sounds like I'm trying to say don't have expectations. That's incorrect.
Right.
You should have expectations. If you don't have expectations, that sounds to me like you don't have a plan. You know what I mean? And if you don't have a plan, you're removing all of your narrative bite.
Right.
Like, if you don't know where you're going or where you're trying to go, your players are going to pick up on that.
Right.
So you need to have a certain amount of expectations into, we need to move in this direction. We need to continue to progress. And you can do that in a number of ways. Dangling shiny things in front of their characters because, my God, it's not real gold. You know that, right? like Morgan, it's not real gold.
Right. Yeah.
But you just dangle it and they just start sprinting, and and that's when you go back to your tent poles and your plot hooks and your encounters and stuff like that. The individual notes within the campaign to push progression and continue and keep your expectations moving forward.
And I think too, there's a bit of a sort of a, I'll call it the role-playing social contract that exists, right?
Phil says if you give up on having a plan, it'll turn into the Starfinder campaign.
Phil, we through that whole campaign, we had a goal. Okay. I mean,
we didn't always remember what it was.
Yes, but we all knew what was supposed to happen. And we But
right, we're doing what now?
But there's sort of a social contract that you enter when you start a role-playing game. As a player, you're like, okay, here's a guy who's going to run the I don't want to make this gender specific. There's a person that's there to run the game, and we have agreed to play in that game. We should probably, help a little bit and make sure that particular story happens, right?
No, that sounds nice, but there's certain people in this universe that are just pure douchebags. But continue.
Yes. But I mean, and maybe that's something that gets difficult too. I mean, you've run into that, Mike, when people aren't playing
Corbin,
along.
Lewis, Freeman, Ottoman.
I didn't want to say I didn't want to name names, but Corbin, yes,
Corbin. There are certain players that they have fun in subverting the expectations of the GM, the goal of the GM. That's where their fun is at. Those people are called jerks. Again, you just have to craft your plan around that. Present. Often, those people are very precious of their individual characters, their individual accomplishments therein. So you craft different carrots on different sticks. Threaten their life a lot. In game, I mean. And give them, offer them treasures and accomplishments and renowned or whatever, because there's ways to pull in every player.
Right.
That's like above preparation and above tent poling and encounters. I think all of that is encompassed in just making sure you're pulling your players in and getting them on board with what you're trying to do. And I think that's the first expectation you should set for yourself. Let me just get them in and involved. Once you do that, you can get them to agree to a whole lot of shit. It can turn into B horror movie versions of logic for your players very quickly if you just get them buying in to the idea of what you're doing.
Got that? Yeah, I think that's great. And let's carry that forward a little bit, because that's your first little word of wisdom. That's your first expectation that a GM should. What would be a second expectation that a GM should have rolling in to a new campaign?
GM should have the expectation of accomplishing whatever their individual goal is. While this is a group game, it is the GM's narrative. And whatever your narrative is as the GM should be your ultimate expectation, your ultimate goal. That could be some climax you have in your mind, some narrative arc that you would like to achieve. In certain cases, if you're talking like Monster of the Week type games or stuff like that, it's murder your players. But that's another expectation that you should have. Know what you're trying to accomplish and expect that your players are going to get along just enough to get you there. You're right about the social contract. If somebody doesn't buy into that, by the way, and I was joking about Corbin, he just likes to poke, and that's fine. That's fine. There's some players just do that, but there are some players legitimately that think it's great to just
to fuck you,
actively destroy, not play their character, but actively destroy the narrative. And that is when you get into like toxic players and removing players from games and stuff like that. When they've broken that social contract, expectation is that they will go along with you on whatever your goal is for the story or game that you are playing.
And if you had to pick a third one,
A third expectation you should have, is that your players will not expect too much from you. That is a third expectation. You are but a person. You are but two people for the Sunday campaign. You have lives outside of this, unless you're exclusively Matthew Mercer, and I think he still has another job. So,
I mean, it's voicing video game characters and shit, but still, yeah, it's time consuming.
Everybody's got other jobs, right? There's probably a handful of people on the planet that exclusively GM for a living. So, they should expect that there will be mistakes, that you will have a certain amount prepared, certain amount won't be prepared, and they should not expect the world. If they do, they're being unrealistic, and that's not on you as the GM.
Patrick, I would like you to comment as a smirked player about player expectation inside of the kind of stuff that we just talked about. Is there, I mean, when you walk into a game, and you've been doing this for a long time, and like me back in the olden days when this was still a thing. As a player, have expectations changed for you?
Sitting in Gary Gygax's basement.
I will say that the expectations have changed just because of the people that I play with now, as opposed to people I played with 30 years ago or so. With a handful of exceptions, I'm not playing with as many rule Nazis as I used to. So the expectations are completely different right now compared to what they used to be, because the expectations now are, yes, we have a structure, but within that structure, we pretty much have free reign. And for me as a player, that's kind of what I like about playing, is that it does give me that ability to not have to worry about every single rule that there is in the book.
Yeah, and I feel like that's been an advantage I've been able to force onto all of you, because many of you didn't play or hadn't played in some time before you started playing.
And there's just no, I mean, like I said, there are the exceptions. There's just no time to learn all the rules.
Right.
No.
And I think it's something that I heard from Critical Role, where they talk about the rule of cool, where it's just like, you know what, sometimes bend the rules because you want things to be fun and interesting for everybody.
There are guidelines.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And yeah, there's also a little bit of weight on your players too. I mean, if you're going to play some weird hybrid, fighter mage, then have the rules ready for that fighter mage, so that the GM isn't expected to, I cast blah blah blah. Well, what's that do? I don't have to know. You're the GM. Fuck you, right? Read me the fucking spell. Jesus.
That's another GM expectation. You should expect your players to know how to do their shit.
Yeah, that's a good one.
The blaring exceptions for brand new characters or a brand new system where you're all just kind of working together to make it work. But you've all played 5e for some time now.
Yeah.
If you look at me and say, "How does that thing work?" I'm gonna tell you we're skipping your turn and we'll come back to you later.
Yep. Yeah, Google's right there, guys. Let's use the Googles. So, all right. So here's my three things that I've begun to expect from myself, my very own GM expectations. Okay, number one, expect to make mistakes, because I just fucking started. Of course, I'm going to make errors. Okay, it's going to happen. Number two, expect that some of my players might feel a little bit left out or bored once in a while. You know what? I think that's an expectation that all GMs should have. As stories progress, sometimes you lean heavier on one character than you do another. That's something, you don't want that. It's hard sometimes, but yes, sometimes that's going to happen. Just try harder next time.
If I may jump in on that,
You may.
That's actually a symptom of a good thing. It generally implies that your players are playing their characters, and characters don't always agree on what to do next or where to go. So people are going to go different places, try different things, and via the nature of every encounter needs to fly through you. If they've separated or gone different ways because they've made interesting player decisions,
Right.
they're just going to have to wait in order for that situation to pass through you. It's just a symptom of good role playing generally.
Very cool. Yep. Good. Very good thought. And very last thing, I expect to have some fun. You've said this before. As soon as I'm not having fun doing this, it's time to, to step back, walk away, try something different, whatever that might be. So there you go then.
Unless we're magically getting paid for it, then your ass stays.
Indeed. Thanks, everyone, for joining us at another episode of Level 1 GM. And everything we talked about here, all of the different campaigns, you can see live on Twitch, or you can go to our YouTube channel and catch up. It's all good. And if you want to join us on Discord, you have to watch us live, because that's where you're going to get the Discord invite. So please come by Twitch, hang out. Wednesdays, Thursdays, Sundays, different campaigns, different storytelling.
I expect to see you soon.
What? All right. Have fun, everybody. Have a good week. We'll talk to you later.